Hello and welcome to 2025. 2024 is over with, and I am here to talk about my favorite albums from 2024 for the second time. I just finished filming this and then realized, hey, my microphone that flashes lights wasn't flashing lights the entire time. So I spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours filming and can't use it. So we're doing this again, but here we are, 2024 albums. Let's get into it. I originally was going to go through everything that I listened to, but if I spent 30 seconds on every album I listened to, it'd be over an hour long. So we're not going to be doing that. I'm just going to have a few honorable mentions now, and then we'll get into my top 25, and I'll try to go through them as quick as possible so we're not here all day. But thank you for watching. Let's get into it. 2024 honorable mentions. Let's get up my first window here. There we go. Mega Colossus with Showdown. Mega Colossus is a pretty good power metal band, and this was really good. All the songs are about different movies. There's a song about Indiana Jones. You know, that's cool. I love Indiana Jones. And my favorite song on here was Grab the Sun, which is about my favorite movie, Mad Max Fury Road. Awesome release, great vocals, great guitar work. Really cool. Mega Colossus, Showdown. Check it out. Next up, we got Brat. Do you like slam riffs? Do you like grind sections? Do you like moving around when you listen to stuff? Well, listen to Brat. This is a really good one. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Kind of grindy, hardcore punk, but more metal than punk, really, I guess. Really cool release. Looking forward to more from this band in the future. It was really cool. Anna Tivol, one of my absolute favorite vocalists working today. I love her voice with Living Thing. This is a great album. Her songs are great, really good melodies, poetic lyrics, softer folk music. Just really good. Incredible vocalist, Anna Tivol. She's awesome. Next up, Lagrimus, A Life of Destruction. This is their first full-length album and their best sounding work to date. The guitar tone is incredible. The vocals are mixed really well into it. Drums sound good. Bass sounds good. Oh my goodness. Dog's going crazy. I don't know if you heard that or not. Lagrimus, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Awesome crust punk band. Great melodies. Yeah, this is their best work, and I'm super stoked on it. I hope that they continue to put out quality music like this, but don't do fade outs anymore. You faded out on my favorite song on the album. As soon as it hits the emotional peak of it, it starts to fade out in The Only Solution, and it annoys me because it would be my favorite song on the album, but it's not because of the fade out. Don't do fade outs like that, please, bands. Lagrimus, A Life of Destruction. Awesome. So stoked about this and how good it was. Definitely check that out. We got Olhava here, Black Gaze band. I love Black Gaze when it's done right, and Olhava do it perfectly. They are my favorite Black Gaze band. Great atmospheric soundscapes. Incredible work. It's another Olhava album. It's another awesome album. Olhava, Sacrifice. Check that out. Sylvain, I think is how you say this. Eiger Framand. I don't know how to say that. It's Nordic folk album with some a cappella sections that are really incredible. Her voice is great. Reminds me a lot of Mirkir. So if you like Mirkir's work, I think you will like this too. There's no black metal in this though. This is just the classical Nordic folk type music, and I think this is probably my favorite thing she's put out to date. This is a great EP. Really dug this, and I think that you'll like it a lot if you like Nordic folk music. Throne of Charlemagne, The Great Victory. This was a demo. It's kind of hard to find, but you can find it on YouTube. I saw it on Bandcamp first, but I have a lot of trouble finding it, any mention of it anywhere else. But yeah, this was a pretty good raw black metal demo. Actually sounds really good for raw black metal too. Great melodies, good stuff. It's pretty good. Vassus, another raw black metal one that came out this year. Warlike Madness, I love this one. It's got a lot of synth in it, like it's like black metal, raw black metal, and dungeon synth layered together, and it works really well. I think Vassus is one of the best bands doing this today, so definitely check this out. I really dug it. Thought it was awesome. Herda. I don't know how to pronounce this. I also forgot to write down what the name of this EP even was, but I'm sure I couldn't pronounce it anyway. But this was awesome. If you want to study how to make raw black metal sound good, listen to this album. The guitars sound great, drums sound great, it all sounds great. Incredible sounding, and the melodies are great. The actual songwriting is really cool. There's use of some different scales than you would usually hear in black metal, I think, on this thing, so it's really cool. And some cool drum patterns here and there too, make it more interesting. So there we have my honorable mentions. I know there were a few others that I wanted to talk about too, but I'll show a list of everything I listened to in the year at the end of this video anyway, so you can go through that. And it is kind of loose, so we're going to get into the top 25 now, but it's kind of loose, except for my top 5 is pretty set in stone, I think, but everything else is... There was so much good music this year, which is why there's 25 this year instead of, I think I just did 10 last year. Let's see here. Let's get into my top 25. The first album here is Aquilus. I didn't get as big a picture there for that one, which I guess I didn't the last one either. Anyway, Aquilus is a neoclassical folk black metal band. A mixture of all those things: neoclassical music, neo-folk music, and black metal. And no band does it like Aquilus. None. Not a single one sounds like Aquilus. They are so unique, so incredible. This is Bellum II. So good. My Frost-Laden Veil has a guitar solo in it that is one of my favorite solos of the entire year. So that's pretty cool too. And they mix the string instruments and the guitars and the intense drumming so well. It just feels like this big epic movie score, and it's so good. I really love Aquilus, one of my absolute favorite bands. This album is great. Fantastic album. Definitely check this out. Aquilus, Bellum II, my number 25. Loosely. Next up, number 24. Replicant, Infinite Mortality, dissonant death metal from New Jersey. These guys are great. I love the weird chords, the weird dissonance, the weird riffs. The bass work and guitar work is just fantastic. There's a great dark, foreboding tone to this album that I really love. The riffs are, again, incredible. These guys are some of the best at writing cool riffs. Just straight up cool riffs. Necrotunnel opens with one of my favorite riffs of the entire year. The vocals also. This is some of the most influential vocals for me in my own music. I love the vocals. Very primal, very animalistic, with these howls and growls and screams and stuff. It's so cool. I really, really dig the vocals. They work so well with this particular style of dissonant metal music, and I think it really elevates Replicant above the rest of the dissonant bands. Like, there are other bands that use dissonance, but of all the bands that just straight up, we're a dissonant death metal band, Replicant are the best, in my opinion. Perfect balance of kind of that blackened feel and the death metal riffing and drumming. And yeah, it's just great. Fantastic work. I think Infinite Mortality might be their best work to date. The previous album was really good too, though, so check out both of them. They're great. You will not be disappointed. Vog 4. This is some spooky kind of horror feeling, nightmarish black metal. Very kind of epic and melodic, but in its own unique way. I think this is one of the best black metal releases of the entire year, for sure. Obviously, it's right here, my number 23. So yeah, it is like some weird nightmarish fantasy, and it is so good. Two-man band. They put out quite a few things, and all their stuff is pretty quality, but this is my favorite thing that I've listened to so far. I still have stuff to go back to for them, so I can't say this is their best work to date, but it could be. It's my favorite thing I've listened to from them, and again, one of the best black metal releases of 2024. Kanonenfieber, Die Urkatastrophe. This is another incredible black metal album. It has a little bit of a death metal feel to it, though, and it also has these big epic sing-along choruses that are very unique. The band has its own feel to it that I really like. They're a World War I themed band, in case you couldn't tell by the awesome album art that perfectly encapsulates the what you're getting with this band, with this guy here putting the populace into the meat grinder. That is so sick. That is some of the coolest album art that I've seen in terms of like the way it connects with the music. That is so good. But yeah, really great melody heavy death metal. The drumming is really good, kind of reminds me of death metal a little bit more. But yeah, this is mostly black metal. Der Mulwerf, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but the chorus of that song might be the best chorus of the entire year. That thing is so good. I love that chorus. And the use of the gun audio samples in that song. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Perfection. So yeah, awesome album, awesome band. I need to go back and listen to more of their work. I've only listened to a couple of their releases. This is my favorite one that I've heard. So, like Wald, can't say it's their best because I haven't heard everything from them, but I will eventually hear everything from them because this is so good. Next up, not metal, punk, kind of punk rock. Well, they have a little bit of a metal thing going on lately, their last few albums. Bayside, There Are Worse Things Than Being Alive. This is a punk rock band from New York, and I think they are really great. They were my favorite band before I got into metal back in 2015. I first started listening to metal. I'm on a Marth, this band that got me into metal. But yeah, I love Bayside, and this album's really good. I think it is one of their better albums, actually, which is saying something because they have an incredible discography thus far. I think the release was kind of weird for this. They released the Blue EP and the Red EP, both of which had 3 songs from this, and then they released singles, so there were only like a few songs that I hadn't heard from this upon its release, so it was a little underwhelming for me when it came out. Like, that takes the wins out of the sales of the album when I've already heard the overwhelming majority of it. But it's still an incredible album, and I think, like I said, they've kind of injected this metal feel kind of in 2011 with Killing Time, which is my favorite album of theirs and the one that I got into them with. That album kind of showed off a heavier feel for the band, but I wouldn't quite call it metal. But they kind of got away from the heavier feel a little bit with Vacancy. Then they came back with Interrobang and really injected that kind of classic heavy metal feel with some of the riffing. I gotta say, I wasn't a huge fan of it on that album though. With non-metal bands, when they try to have that metal edge, a lot of times it comes across as really cheesy for me. But this album doesn't have that problem. There Are Worse Things Than Being Alive, the guitar tone on it, the actual riffs themselves, the songwriting structures, they have perfectly mixed that metal edge that they've been trying to add, and successfully, very successfully on this album, I might add. They've mixed that metal edge with the catchy, emo, melodic punk feel that the band has been playing around with for their entire discography. And it's incredible. Every Bayside album has its own unique feel while still being Bayside, and that is something so many bands could learn something from. They have all these albums out, and they're still sounding like themselves, but still innovative. It's kind of interesting because this is like their best heavy metal influence sounding album, but it's also one of their poppiest sounding albums in some ways. The choruses are very, very catchy. Songs like Castaway, Go to Hell, Bad Intentions, those songs have incredible choruses. Say So Long is my favorite song on the album. I absolutely love that classic skate punk drum pattern that opens the song and that we get again after the first chorus. I wish that Bayside would do that more because they'd be an incredible skate punk band. They've got all the qualities that make that type of music work so well, and like I've seen footage of them covering NoFX songs at concerts and stuff, and it's always awesome. So they make an awesome skate punk band, but hopefully they inject more of that into their music in the future too, which they've had, you know, kind of skate punk adjacent stuff. They had kind of D-beat in the song Rochambeau, one of my very favorite songs of theirs from the Shudder album, as well as there's D-beat under the guitar solo in The Devils, I think. So that's really cool. Also, speaking of The Devils, opening track on this song, it opens up with that cool choir gang vocal thing, and that shows up again and again and again on this album, and it is awesome every time. I love it. It's a really cool addition to the sound. I've talked about this one for a while, but Bayside's one of my very favorite bands. Gotta give them their spot here, even if I have a few nitpicks here and there with some of their stuff in the past. I think this is a great album, and again, the release of this was kind of weird, but Bayside, there are worse things than being alive. Awesome album. I'm super happy that Bayside still put out quality music today. Moving on, let's get back into metal. Black metal album, Kärv. I'm not sure how you pronounce the A with the 2 dots over it there, but yeah, What the Dunes Have Hidden. This is an incredible black metal album. It's not overly flashy, but it still has a lot of attention given to the melodies and the layering of the instruments, and it sounds incredible. It is very pleasing to listen to. It has a great atmosphere throughout the whole thing. It kind of has this dark feel to it, juxtaposed with the lyrics, which have a biblical theme, which is really awesome. I would love to hear more music like this with a biblical theme. That is really cool. Battle Chant, for instance, the song Battle Chant has direct quote from reading Revelation chapter 12 verses 7 through 9, which is pretty cool. It's neat to hear. It makes this album kind of unique, the theme of it. And even if you don't care about the lyrical theme of the album, the music itself is also awesome. So definitely check this out if you're into black metal. The track Consecration, by the way, an a cappella song, is so beautiful and might be my favorite thing on the whole album. It is great. I really liked it. But yeah, this is an awesome album. Kärv, What the Dunes Have Hidden. I apologize for not saying your name right if you happen to see this. But you made an incredible album here, and I can't wait to hear more of your stuff in the future. The previous release was also awesome. So yeah, definitely go check this band out. Another one to check out, another black metal band with great melody, kind of an epic medieval feel to it too. There's a French band called, I don't know how to pronounce the A with the arrow over the top of it. Palefroid is how I would guess to pronounce it. Lapel. It's like a lapel. I'm sorry, I'm so stupid. This is an awesome album though. If you like bands like Havukrunu or Abduction, two of my absolute favorite black metal bands, I think you will really dig this. They kind of emulate that sound to me that those two bands have, without feeling like they're ripping off those bands. This is a really great project that stands out on its own while reminding me of other bands I love, which just means, oh, I have another black metal band that I love in this vein. So really incredible. Really awesome work. I need to go back and listen to more of this band's work, but this was just great. One of the best black metal bands working today, I would say. Actually, this is really good stuff. One of my favorites of 2024 right here. Number 19. Number 18, let's move on. And another black metal album, go figure. I listen to a lot of black metal. Here we have Burnt Lodge, an indigenous black metal band, and this is Intergenerational Anamnesis. This is a really good album, and I'm excited to talk about this one because it's a perfect blend of, like, the first track, for instance, the chorus in it, like the melody, the guitar line in it, the lead guitar line in it, and the chorus gets stuck in my head all the time. Super catchy. There are so many catchy parts in this album, but it is furious. It is aggressive. This is some of the most aggressive black metal that I think this is the most aggressive black metal that I heard in the entire year, while also being some of the catchiest black metal of the entire year. It is incredible stuff, and I love indigenous black metal. You know, Black Braid came along, they were pretty good, so a lot of people have started to pay attention to indigenous black metal. Yeah, Black Braid's pretty good. I like Burnt Lodge even more, potentially, I think. I think these songs are incredibly well structured. The songwriting is great, and yeah, just really aggressive, really catchy. Probably my second favorite indigenous black metal band, actually, now. right under Nachachwan. But Burnt Lodge is incredible. The riffs on this album are super good, and the guitar solos are so good. You don't hear that super often in black metal, really awesome guitar solos, but there are really awesome guitar solos on this album, and sprinkled throughout the whole album. Songs will have multiple guitar solos. It's awesome. I love it so much. This is one too where I heard the first song and I'm like, okay, this is really aggressive, really catchy. It's awesome. I've said awesome so many times in this. I'm talking about this album. The rest of the album was just as good, just as catchy, just as aggressive, and when it slowed down, it was still great. Like the acoustic sections with the kind of Spanish guitar feel to it. Just really, really, really awesome band. Really awesome album. Can't wait for more from this band. I think it's a one-man band. Really, really stellar stuff. Definitely check this out, especially if you've gotten into the indigenous stuff with like Black Braid coming out. Definitely check out Burnt Lodge. This album is so good. Love it. Next up, another small picture I guess here, but another black metal band, Daedric Chamber. This is, as you can tell by the name, this is a one-man Elder Scrolls themed raw black metal band and also dungeon synth band, and he layers dungeon synth into the black metal really, really well. This album I keep going back to because this, for me, this is like my perfect sitting there on a rainy day with a cup of coffee. This is the perfect music for that for me. I really, really love the feel, the tone of Daedric Chamber's work, and this is one of Daedric Chamber's best albums. Also put out an EP earlier in the year called Necromantic, also really good. Daedric Chamber's pretty prolific, usually puts out a few releases a year. So yeah, really good stuff. Somehow doesn't run out of steam. And again, I think this is some of Daedric Chamber's best work here. The Black Veil Endures, especially that title track. I really love that title track. Thought it was really good. And the synth tones. Love the synth tones. So yeah, Daedric Chamber, The Black Veil Endures, my personal pick for best rainy day album of the year, and one of my favorites here, number 17. All right, let's move on now into kind of death thrash. Oxygen Destroyer, kaiju themed band, Guardian of the Universe. This is their best album to date. This has incredible riffing, best vocals they've done to date, best use of samples I think they've had in any of their albums so far, because they always have samples from kaiju movies, which this one is about, the Gamera, however you're supposed to say that. It's about those movies, as evident by the album art. Yeah, it's their best work to date. The drums, also the most incredible drumming that the band has had in any of their stuff to date. It's so good. Every element came together to just make their best work, and it's great. It's really good stuff. They have kind of this black metal feel to them, especially because the vocals are in kind of that high raspy register. There are some low stuff every once in a while on this album too, though. Also, that album art, awesome. They use the same artist for all of their work, and it's always incredible. If you want music that sounds like that, there you go. Oxygen Destroyer, great death thrash band, little blackened feel to them here and there. Really awesome. Next up, Laceration. I think it was 2021 I got into these guys with their album Demise. Their new album is I Erode, and once again they're making my year-end list. Laceration are incredible. I love them. This is their best album to date. I keep saying that. This is their best album to date. It is... it's so good. It's so fun. It's pretty much every element I want out of a good, fun death metal album. The guitar tone is great. The riffs themselves are awesome. The bass is really present on this as well. The drum sound is really, really good too. Snare tone is really good. The actual drum beats, the performance, there's so many fun drum beats on this album. Vile Incarnate is a really good example of that. It's one of my favorite songs on the album. Might be my favorite song on the album. Hard to choose though, because every song is great. There's so many good riffs, so many good guitar solos, especially like the ones using the neck pickup. They sound so fluid, so great. Yeah, just really good mix really good songwriting, good everything. It's just fantastic death metal. Definitely check that out. Really, really awesome band. I would love for them to get more attention than they already do because they're awesome. So definitely check out this album. Also, that's a pretty cool album cover too, and that looks like something out of Dark Souls 2 or something. That's cool. I like that a lot. Like the colors of it and everything just makes me think of Dark Souls 2. So yeah, really awesome. Awesome band, awesome album. Definitely check that out. Moving on to something not so extreme, power metal. Galneryus. This was my favorite power metal release of the year with The Stars Will Light the Way. These are this is a Japanese power metal band, and this album really has everything that I look for in a good power metal album. Great guitar riffs, great guitar solos, synth solos. Good lord, the guitar solos and synth solos on this album are awesome. Killer vocals, super catchy choruses, and this album just has all of the elements that make power metal awesome to me. So yeah, this is my favorite power metal album of the year right here at number 14. I keep going back to it. It's just a good time. So like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I'll just put it on sometimes. It's just great. Some really good songs on here. The Reason We Fight was really good. Heartless was really good. I Believe was awesome. Drums are really good too. In the track in Water's Gaze, there's some really cool galloping double bass stuff in that makes me happy. I love it. This is a really great album. Puts me in a good mood every time, and it just sounds incredible. With guitar solos and the synth. Oh, I love a good synth solo, and they sound awesome on this thing. So yeah, definitely check this out if you're a power metal fan. Galneryus, The Stars Will Light the Way, my number 14 of the year. Next up, we go into folk territory with Amigo the Devil. Dark folk, murder folk even. Some really great songwriting. I really like the lyricism on display here. I have been a fan of his for a little while now, and I've always loved his lyrics and his songwriting. It's really cool. He has like equal parts really dark, kind of edgy humor, and like kind of almost offensive humor in some stuff, which I mean, it's murder folk, so that's kind of expected. But then he's also got really heartfelt, emotional, poetic stuff, and I just really dig that. A perfect mix of dark humor and kind of depressing, emotional stuff going on. I really love his vocals. I love his voice. Really, really love his voice. The instrumentation on display on this album is great too. The mix of every instrument is awesome. All these different folk instruments. Oh yeah, his vocals, he does this kind of death growl a little bit here and there. Mostly on It's All Gone. He does that in the chorus of that song. It was kind of fun. Yeah, this has some of his best work. The mechanic is really good. Really good heartfelt song there. That one was one of the singles. Once Upon a Time in a Texaco is like a Quentin Tarantino movie in song form, and it's really fun. Virtue and Vitriol, I like that one a lot. One Day at a Time, I like that one. That's a more fun one. Stray Dog, ooh, that is one of the funnest songs he's ever done, I think. I really like that one, and it's kind of heartfelt. It's kind of sweet in its own way, so that is kind of cool, and it's the biggest song, like the biggest production of anything on this album too. And then to close things off, the closing track, Closer, might be my favorite on the album. Maybe the vocals are just like spoken word over this really sad sounding guitar, and it's very soul crushing, heart wrenching, probably a tough listen for some people, but I really love it, and I guess I'm just an emotional masochist or something. I really like it. I think it's a great song, great album. Yours Until the War Is Over. I don't know if I actually said the title, but there it is. Listen to it a ridiculous amount of times this year. Moving on, we got Sidon. This is a Japanese horror-themed black metal band. One of the catchiest albums of the year. Like, it's like pop music, but it's black metal. Which doesn't seem like it should make any sense, because why would black metal, something that's so, like, typically underground, be anything like pop music, but it is. And it's really well done. It's not stupid. It's not cheesy and dumb. It's well written. It's well structured. Yeah, Sidon have outdone themselves here with Visual Kill, The Blossoming of Psychotic Depravity. Again, I don't know if I said that, the title of the album there, but yeah, I think this is their best release yet. Switchblade Paradise, probably my favorite song on this. The chorus is incredible, and the guitar harmonies are awesome, but every chorus is so catchy on this thing. Such good melodies, and yeah, it's really great to see. It kind of reminds me of, was it Kärv? Not sure how to pronounce that band, but they had an album called The Amethyst Fortress that I absolutely loved, and this band Sidon kind of reminds me of that, and yeah, so I really love it. I think this is an incredible album, and should be on more people's radar. I think it got some decent attention this year, which I'm glad about because it deserves it. It's really awesome. So yeah, there's my number 12. Moving on, we go to my number 11, and this one was an early favorite. Hideous Divinity, Unextinct. Look at that album cover. Good lord. Adam Burke is probably my favorite artist. I love him, and this cover is so good. It encapsulates the feel of the album so well. Like, when I listen to the album, I feel these colors, if that makes sense. Like, the sound of everything just makes me feel these colors, which maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm just weird. That's how I feel. But this is an incredible band. Really great, kind of technical death metal band. And this is their best work to date, their best album yet. This is incredible. It's so grand. Like, every song on this works together so well because it is like one big focused project, this big grand vision, and it's just so good. It is so well executed. The guitar tones, the way the drums sound, the way the bass comes in, the vocals, the layering of everything. There's some weird choices with like guitar lines and bass lines here and there that add to like the horror aesthetic of this album, because you see the album cover, obviously that's Nosferatu, which the whole album isn't about just Nosferatu. It's kind of a mix of different things, but Nosferatu is like the most prevalent one for me that I know, so I latched onto it a lot, and it pairs well with the new Robert Eggers movie, by the way. But yeah, this is so good. It's got that horror feel to it, and it's got this just awesome soundscape going on, so textured, so rich in different tones that all work together to make this unified feel, and it is incredible to listen to. It is baffling that a band can put together something this complex, but it still feels like one thing. It's really powerful, and yeah, I can't get enough of it. I keep going back to it. It's hard for me to listen to just one song from this because they're all so good. I have to listen to the whole album. Yeah, it just has this kind of dreamy, I guess nightmarish would be a better term, atmospheric feel to it, and some of the best soundscapes you'll hear the entire year. Hideous Divinity, Unextinct, incredible stuff. One of my very favorite albums of the year, one of the best and one of the absolute most unique death metal albums I've ever heard, which kind of ironic because my next album that I'm going to talk about is also kind of that same grain of being this big epic thing that has all these different tones and stuff. It kind of has the same thing going on for it, but they both are very different in their feel, where this one is more grand and epic and just has this horror feel to it. The next album, which we'll go ahead and get into, which go and listen to this, Hideous Divinity, Unextinct. Awesome, my number 11, but again, this is kind of loose. Sometimes it's like my number 6, so it goes up and down. Everything on this list does. Hideous Divinity, Unextinct, their best work to date, incredible album, awesome. But that kind of leads us into, again, another album that the album art helps me visualize the feel of the album, which is this Vitriol album, Suffer and Become. This is another early favorite for me. And it feels to me like, with these weird guitar riffs going on, they're so just odd. It feels like snakes slithering through the skeletal structure of typical death metal. And it is furious. Burnt Lodge was the most furious black metal. This is the most furious death metal of the year. It is animalistic, especially in that vocal. The vocals on this album are so bestial and just, oh, I love them. It is so good. The guitar sounds on this album are incredible. I absolutely love the guitar sounds on this album. They work so well with those weird guitar riffs. Like, I mean, the album opens up, Shamanist Afterbirth. It just opens with these weird sounds, and it keeps building from there and building and building. And that's what this album keeps doing. It keeps having these sections that build and build and build and build, and you think it can't build anymore, and it keeps building. And it's incredible. It is so well done. It is so well structured, very well written, well performed, everything. It is awesome. It's very unique also, even though it does have, kind of that similar thing where it has this one kind of unified feel to it. Like the Hideous Divinity album, it is a very different feel. This one is much more aggressive and much more hateful. I would say Vitriol is a really good name for this band, because it does just feel downright hateful sometimes, which I hate it. When people say that metal music is just, that's just angry people music, because it's not. Metal music is fun music. It's escapist music. Like, you listen to it and you forget about your problems and you just have fun listening to it. These crazy riffs, these crazy vocals and everything. It's fun. But this album does have that element, even though I think it is really fun to go through all the layers of everything. It still has that kind of hateful feel to it. So that's kind of interesting. This is the first album that I think I've ever described as hateful. So yeah, there's that. But it is really intense, and I can see this being too much for people who are even into extreme music, because this is really extreme. Like, in terms of the really extreme stuff, like, I really love Cattle Decapitation, but these guys are even more extreme than Cattle, which is saying something. But yeah, this is some incredible stuff. I love the guitar tones. I keep saying that. I love the guitar tones. I love the kind of weird sounds. I assume it's guitar sounds, because that dude's pedal board is insane if you see it. But there's this kind of sound. At first I was thinking that it might have been some kind of keyboard sound, like a choir effect or something. But it could be like a guitar effect, like a shimmer effect maybe. I guess that would make sense. Again, seeing that dude's pedal board. But yeah, the guitar sound is incredible. It is really, really good. There are parts where it just sounds like it's ripping through the air. It's so cool. The drumming is insane. Some of the most intense drumming I've ever heard anybody do. Just incredible. And the sound of the drums are great too. I love the snare tone. The whole kit sounds great though. Yeah, there's even an instrumental song too, so if you're not into the vocal style, you can at least get a taste for the music. Survival's Careening Inertia. It's also one of my favorite songs on the album, even though I love those intense vocals. It's really cool to hear clean tone guitars in the first half of it, but there's still like blast beats under it. And then we get the full distorted guitars come in towards the end too. It's really awesome. Weaponized Loss and Shamanist Afterbirth, probably my favorite songs on this album, but I mean, they're all awesome. Shamanist Afterbirth also, opening song, has this super long guitar solo section that I just love. More bands need to have really long guitar solo sections like that. It's so good. Really loved it. Yeah, Vitriol, Suffer and Become, awesome album. Looking forward to more from this band. Hopefully they can continue, because this was a really awesome album. And yeah, I love that album art, by the way. Dylan Humphreys did that when I mentioned you, because awesome job, dude. Vendel, Out in the Fields. Moving away from the extreme stuff, this is a heavy metal band. This is some epic doomy heavy metal, kind of along the lines of Doomsword, and kind of has a feel that reminds me of Smolder a little bit. So if you're into any of those two bands, Vendel, check them out. This is my favorite heavy metal album of the year. Sound of it is incredible. The bass sounds great. I always love it when the bass sounds good on albums. The guitar tone is awesome. The drum sound, oh boy, this might be my favorite heavy metal drum sound ever. The snare sounds great, the toms sound great, that bass drum is so heavy. Like, this is heavy metal, and it's just incredible. I love the drum sound on this, because they're so big, they're so heavy, but they don't like drown anything out or cut through too much. They're perfectly placed into it. Everything just has this weight to it. There's this bassiness to the whole album, and it's really, really good. Guitar riffs are awesome too. Dirge, I really like the opening riff in that. There's some cool Iron Maiden-y sounding guitar riffs here and there, and the vocals are incredible too. I really like the vocals on this album. Some of my favorite in current heavy metal. The guitar solos also. Love good guitar solos. And this album has good guitar solos. The guitar solos really showcase 3 things that you should keep in mind if you're doing guitar solos. 1, finger tapping is awesome. 2, wah pedals are awesome. 3, finger tapping while using a wah pedal is about the greatest thing ever. I really, really, really love this album. Never Surrender was one of my favorite songs. It's hard to pick a favorite song on this album because they're all awesome. Nothing boring. Even when they do slow down, because they do have this doomy feel to them, kind of like Doomsword, which was what drew me to the band. I think I saw an ad on Instagram, and they were one of the things that was in the ad. There was a bunch of different albums, and it was like for fans of Doomsword and some other bands. I was like, oh, I love Doomsword. Wish they'd put out something new. Well, here's Vendel to put out an album that fills that slot for me, so I'm super happy with it. I love it. Vendel, Out in the Fields, my favorite heavy metal album of the year. Super highly recommended from me. Definitely check this out. Everything about it is awesome. Alright, so that's number 9. Moving on to number 8 here, we got a band that I just knew would end up at the end of my year-end list. Atræ, Bilis. Hope I say that right. Aumicide. Hope I say that right. This is a technical death metal band that blew me away with their debut EP, Divinity, and then they released Apex Sapien, full-length album, and it was awesome. Kind of furthered their sound, and then this one kind of mixes those two releases together in a really satisfying way, while also still continuing to further their sound, and it is really, really awesome. I really love the way that this band has continued to evolve while still staying true to their sound. Guitar riffs are awesome. The mix of the album is awesome. The bass sounds great. The drums sound awesome. The vocals also the best that the band has had on anything. And yeah, once again, best album the band has put out today, I would say. This is some incredible stuff. The riffs, I just can't get over the riffs. I love sliding riffs. Hell Simulation, that track has some really, really awesome sliding riffs on it. I love bending riffs too. There's some of that on this album as well. Salted and Stygia. At the beginning of the song, there's a lot of riffs that kind of remind me of the sound the band had on Divinity. The Faceless Maw. I'm not sure exactly what the lyric is, but with heavily tremolo effect on the vocals, and it is so good. I love it so much. That section of the song gets stuck in my head all the time. Really, really cool chorus. And yeah, that's something that the band does a lot, is a tremolo effect, which I guess some people don't like that. I don't know. I couldn't disagree more. I think it's one of the coolest things this band has done. They don't just do it on the vocals either, which is awesome on the vocals, but the track Inward to Abraxas, the end of that, towards the end of that, we get some really heavy use of the tremolo effect on the guitars, and it is so heavy sounding. It is so cool. I love it so much. Really awesome stuff. You agree? Okay, that's a really awesome one though. It also has a really cool bending riff. The opening of Inward to Abraxas, really awesome song. There's some throat singing thrown in here and there for an awesome kind of creepy effect. I love throat singing, so anytime it makes an appearance in an album, I'm gonna be pumped for it. And yeah, it's used super well on this album. Atræ, Bilis continuing to show that they are one of the best modern death metal bands with this release, and yeah, incredible. Number 8, Atræ, Bilis, Aumicide. I just realized I had 2 bands in a row that started with V, with Vitriol and Vendel, and now I have Atræ, Bilis, and moving on to number 7, another one that starts with A, with Eiger, I think is how you say that. It's the name of a mountain. This is a concept album about mountain climbing expedition that ends badly. And yeah, AARA, I think I say that right. I probably don't though. Is a Swiss black metal band, and kind of like how Aquilus, Aquilus I said was like a neoclassical, neo-folk black metal band. This is also like a classical black metal band, but they don't have any of the classical instruments or folk instruments, really. They just write their music like classical music. So you have these incredible layered guitars with like your rhythm guitars doing their thing, and then you have like some kind of lead guitar doing something, and then sometimes you'll have another lead layered on that, and then another lead layered on that, and it's just amazing to pull apart all of the different layers in your head. The way that they all work together is just so good. And this album adds another element that the band hasn't really done before, which is adding acoustic guitars, and they sound awesome. They add so much to the sound of the band. When you've got these heavy distorted things going on that are still stand out on their own, still sound great. They really great proper use of distortion and different guitar tones by this band. But the really crisp, clean acoustics on this album, just, it's breathtaking. Much like the actual mountain itself, breathtaking. And it's so good. AARA put out an album like every year since they have started, and this time they waited all the way until winter. It had always been kind of earlier in the year, I think, when they had released their albums, but this time they waited until the winter, which makes sense because this is a very winter feeling album, and I really love it. It has that kind of icy black metal feel. I mean, there's not much more to say. It's just an incredible masterpiece. I genuinely think this is the band's best work, and this is another thing to mention. This is the band that got me into black metal, so that's saying something for me. I think this is their best album. I keep saying that. So many bands put out their best work in 2024. It is just crazy. Everything about the band is elevated by new elements. The drumming is as intense and insane, but still tasteful as ever. So, yeah. Every element of this band that I liked before is just as good, if not better, on this album, and I couldn't be happier. I'm so glad that they continue to put out quality albums year after year. So looking forward to more stuff from this band in the future as well. Next up, moving away from metal, this is Bright Eyes with 5 dice, all 3s at my number 6 slot here. I'm a huge Bright Eyes fan. Really dig them since before I was into metal. Conor Oberst, I think, is an incredible songwriter. I think most people would agree he's a great songwriter, but some people have, like, his vocals are kind of divisive, and I understand that because he's not like, oh, listen to me hit these notes, listen to me do this run, you know, I don't have these. He's not a soaring vocalist type, and he's not a perfectionist with his vocals. However, I love that about his vocals. I think he is one of my very favorite vocalists because I think that he just has a way of conveying the emotional weight of what he's saying in his songs so well, with the way that his voice sounds, the way that he delivers lines. No one really does it like him, and I think he sounds very unique. And his lyrics are incredible. He is such a poetic writer, has a lot of really hard-hitting emotional lyrics in his writing, and he's just immensely talented as a lyricist, as a poetic writer, as a songwriter. And this is, I would say, one of Bright Eyes, one of their best albums to date. And I'm super happy about that. I'm super happy they're making music again, too, because they've been on hiatus for a while until Down in the Weeds, Where the World Once Was came out, which that one kind of was a little bit disappointing for me. Incredible album art, though. That's like one of my favorite album covers ever. But they came back and I was a little bit let down. It felt like they were, I don't want to say washed out, but it just wasn't as much for me, which every Bayside, every Bright Eyes album kind of has its own feel, its own sound. Sometimes it's its own style of music that's completely different than a lot of their other stuff. And I think 5 Dice All Threes is one of the best. I think it's in my top 3 Bright Eyes albums, to be honest. I really love this one. I think it's a wonderfully textured album, mixed really well. The musical instruments all sound great. I really like the way that Conor's vocals sound on this album in particular. Yeah, just a lot of really dark lyrics, but with kind of lighter music, which I really like that type of thing. A lot of really catchy melodies. It's just a great album, and I'm super happy that Bright Eyes continues to put out quality music. I'm glad that they're back from hiatus, because I was also worried that they would come back and do one album and then be gone again, but no, they've stuck around. Hopefully they continue to put out more albums, because this is awesome. One of my favorite Bright Eyes albums, my number 6 of the year. So now we move on into my top 5, and at the number 5 spot we go back into death metal. Another very unique death metal album, Fractal Generator Convergence. There are a lot of science fiction themed death metal albums, a lot of them. Few of them you can listen to and tell that it's a sci-fi death metal album without understanding the lyrics. And this is one of those albums, because they have these sci-fi sounds and noises going on layered into the music, and it is awesome every time it happens. I love that they do that, and it makes the band feel very special, very unique, and I couldn't be happier with this new album, Convergence. Best album to date? Maybe the previous album, Macrocosmos, that was in 2021, I believe. I really love that album, and this new one, Convergence, actually has a really similar sound to that in terms of like the guitar tones and drum sound and everything. It kind of feels really similar to that, which is another thing I like about this, because I love the sound of Macrocosmos, and this isn't too far off from the sound of Macrocosmos. But Convergence stands on its own in that they play around even more with weird riffs and weird guitar chords, which I really, really love. Reminds me of The Bleeding by Cannibal Corpse, some of the weird chords and riffs on that. The vocals on this album are kind of mixed low into the album, which is oddly something I like, because it works well in the that kind of typical, like, you think of vocals in death metal albums as just being like another instrument in the music, and that kind of is the way that they work in this. They kind of sit in that space where they're not overbearing, they're not on top of everything, they're in everything. And I think it's a really cool way to mix the vocals that doesn't call too much attention to them, but still lets them shine in their own way. But yeah, this has a really great, unique feel, really dark tone to it that I really like. Kind of a creepy vibe going on with this cosmic science fiction death metal, and I'm so glad that they put out another album. There are some awesome riffs on this thing. Picking a favorite guitar riff on this is like picking your favorite letter of the alphabet. It is stupid. Like, how do you even approach that? It's awesome. I love this band. I love this album. Obviously, it's my number 5 of the year. If you like death metal that's different and kind of stands on its own, here you go. This is an awesome album. Convergence by Fractal Generator, number 5. Moving on to number 4, we go to black metal again with Majesty. This is Exaltation 1 through 4. I believe this is a one-man band. He also put out Exaltation 5 through 8 in 2024, and I think there's going to be another part of it in 2025, and then maybe something else that's different in 2025 from this band, which I am very much looking forward to, because this is a really cool band. Both of the Exaltation releases are about a different season of the year. So this one here is my favorite one, is winter, and the other one was autumn. Looking at the album art of both of them, you can kind of tell, you know, that's how the album's going to sound, and that's the way that it is. Like, this one has a very icy feel, whereas there's a more bright tone to the autumn album. But yes, this is also winter themed. It has a very cold atmospheric feel to it, very cold black metal. The guitar tone is maybe my favorite guitar tone of the entire year, especially in black metal. I love that guitar tone. It's got that raw feel, it's got that grit to it, but it is still defined enough that you can hear the melodies, and there are a lot of awesome melodies on this album. Some of my favorite of the entire year, especially in the black metal. I mean, obviously, I think this is my highest ranking black metal album of the year. So yeah, just incredible work. I love that guitar tone again. The songwriting is fantastic. If you listen to this on streaming, the different songs are all compiled into one long track. It's like a 16.5-minute song, but it's worth listening to every second of it. I don't think I've ever listened to just one section of it. I always listen to the whole thing because it is just so good. I really like the tempo as well. There are different tempos, obviously, throughout, but something about a slower blast beat sometime having more power behind it. This is a really great example of that, especially with those guitar riffs going on, those melodies. It is so good. I like the vocals. There's some good reverb on the vocals there. And yeah, it just has this nice winter feel to it. But another thing that pushes this over the top for me, and the reason why I love it so much, is the theme of the album is so cool, which is kind of along the same lines as Kärv, with that biblical theme going on in that album. This one is an album about seeing God's qualities through his creations, through nature. It's a Christian, nature-themed black metal band that also happens to make some of the best black metal I've ever heard. Both the Exaltation releases so far are incredible. Again, both reflective of different seasons and seeing God through the beauty of those different seasons. But I personally like this winter one the best. So yeah, this is my pick. This is my number 4 of the year. My favorite black metal album of the year, Majesty, Exaltation 1 through 4. Incredible stuff. Can't wait for more from this band. Yeah, it's just great. I love it. I really, really love it. It's kind of uplifting, even with its kind of depressive winter feel. It's not about warfare or rebelling against anything. So it's just a nice album to listen to. You don't get that very much in the stuff that I recommend. So here you go. It's something that's uplifting. But we're moving on to something that's also really fun. And I would say also uplifting. So, and it also has black metal elements to it, but it's not pure black metal. It's also got medieval folk elements. It's also got pop elements. Have I given it away yet? We've got Curta'n Wall here. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I keep trying to and butchering it. My number 3 favorite album of the year, Curta'n Wall. I talked about them in my 2023 list. Siege Obsessed was one of my very favorite albums from that year, and the title track I still listen to regularly. It's one of my favorite songs ever. But this new album is also incredible. It's definitely the best mixed Curta'n Wall album too. The instruments sound amazing. There's a lot of weight behind the feel of the album too. Really good sound and some really cool new elements. Like, there's a lot more clean vocals on this album than in previous Curta'n Wall albums. Unicorn's Horn, for instance, first song beyond the just clean vocals in that one. None of his typical harsh, froggy, raspy vocals. They have this perfect element of cheese in the delivery of them that really elevates this band even more, I think. And really great melodies. I mean, that goes without saying. This band is so catchy and so fun. Like I said, it's kind of like pop music. It's kind of like pop music for black metal nerds. Pop music for medieval black metal nerds. That's what it is. Yeah, and the instruments reflect that. There's a lot of great instruments, a lot of different acoustic instruments, guitars, and you got your guitar, drum, bass, you got your different keyboard sounds, you got flutes, you got bagpipes, you got all kinds of stuff, and it sounds really awesome. As far as new elements, there's also kind of a punk feel in some of the guitars on this album. Like, my favorite song on the album is Hill Fort, I think, and that one kind of has a kind of old school punk rock feel to the guitar riffs on it. That one also features this weird glitchy vocal part like towards the middle of this song that seems like something I would hate, but for whatever reason I just love it. It just puts a great big smile on my face. Even just talking about it now, it makes me so happy. It's so cool. Hillford is awesome. Really good album, as you would expect from this band. It keeps getting better and better. I don't know if I like this more than Siege Obsessed, but I would say it's at least, again, a better sounding, better mixed album, and the songwriting is incredible. Super catchy, super fun, and even there's some new versions of some old songs on here. Siege Tower, this is the best version of Siege Tower by far. It sounds incredible on this album. I really like it, and the new acoustic version of Fear of God is super fun. I really like it. It might be my favorite version of the song as well, especially with Elvia's vocals. Elvia, I hope I say that right. She is amazing. She's been on this and the last Curta'n Wall album, and her vocals are so good. The gang vocals on the new version of Fear of God, also really awesome. But then there's also some really emotionally hitting parts in the album. Like The Last Wizard is super epic. The end of the final track, Robin Hood, just soars, and it's a perfect way to close the album. So yeah, perfect mix of fun with just quality songwriting, and it's I could go on and on. I gotta move on. I've been talking for so long now. And again, this is the second time I've had to film this video because I didn't have my microphone on the first time. I was so stupid. Anyway, let's move on to my number 2. One that kind of surprising for me and for anybody who's heard me talk about this band before, probably, because I was never into them and I just never bought the hype. But probably not surprising to most people, given that it's been on everybody's list. But yeah, we got Blood Incantation, Absolute Elsewhere. I was never into this band before this album came out, probably because I didn't really go back and give much of their older stuff a chance. The only thing I'd heard of theirs was Hidden Histories of the Human Race, and I just didn't get it. Now the band clicks with me. Now I understand what they're going for, but I still think Human Histories, or Hidden Histories, I think that album is still maybe my least favorite of their albums. I think Starspawn is a better example of the band than that one is. Like, you get more of the spacey feel to it, more of the cosmic feel to it. I think both their prior releases before that one were better, in my opinion. At least I like them more. But I do like Hidden Histories now, and I didn't before. So I've gotten into the band now, and I'm super happy. But yeah, Absolute Elsewhere blew me away. It opens up with this great spacey sound to it before everything kind of comes in with this heavy metal feel, and the guitars sound incredible too. The electric guitar sounds so good. Those tones work together really well. They mesh together, but they're also separate enough that when they're both doing different things, it just sounds incredible. And the layering on this album it's something else, dude. It's something else. The attention to detail, the different sounds. It's another one with incredible soundscapes, much like the Hideous Divinity album did and the Vitriol album. This is on a completely different side of things, though, with that kind of 70s progressive rock feel to it. A lot of people have compared it to like Pink Floyd. I would also compare it to like synth era Rush, which I love Rush. I think their music is incredible, and if you can remind me of Rush, you're doing something good. Tablet 1 of Stargate, the synths in that one just really reminded me of Rush, and I was like, yep, I can click with this band with what they're doing right now. And the whole album just follows suit. The death metal sections are awesome, the progressive sections are awesome, the synth sections are awesome. The feature on this thing, Tangerine Dream, that's so cool. I was really surprised to see that, and I really like that. It's a cool feature to have on this. And there's a lot of really cool sounds too with the guitars, like the harmonics they use a lot. They keep coming into play, and I just love the way it sounds, especially with the reverb on them. It sounds so good. Vocals also sound really great. They sound really spacey and otherworldly. I mean, what is there to say that hasn't been said already? It's an incredible album. Everybody's talking about it, and deservedly so. One of those few albums where I think it absolutely 100% deserves all of the hype it got because it lives up to it. It is, no exaggeration, a masterpiece. I think it's a perfect album. There's not a thing I would change on it, I don't think. It's just so good. And the last half of the final song, Tablet 3 of the message, some of my favorite music of the entire year, some of my favorite music ever. That is so good. What a perfect way to close the album. And also, mention, I didn't write down the artist. I meant to look up and write down the artist for this one, because this is my favorite album cover of the entire year. Absolute Elsewhere, Blood Incantation. That's my number 2 of the year. And now we'll move on to my number 1 of the year, which will not be a surprise to anybody who knows me. Another album cover with a pyramid on it. Nile, The Underworld Awaits Us All. Nile are one of my absolute very, 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 very favorite bands. Like, top 3. The actual music itself with the Egyptology themes. It's so good. Plus, they have other themes, sometimes Lovecraftian stuff or Islamic stuff or different cultures, Hittites. But mostly known for history of ancient Egypt and the mythology, the religion of ancient Egypt, which is stuff that I'm a nerd for. Different religions and cultures is something that I'm really into. And Nile helped further that, as well as that helped further my love of Nile. So yeah, one of my favorite bands. I don't need to get into the history of the band, though. Let's get into this album. Since Dallas left after What Should Not Be Unearthed, a lot of people think that they kind of aren't as good, which is kind of crazy to me to say that they released one album after Dallas left and you're already like, they're just not as good anymore. I just say they're different. I'd say they're just as good, but they're a little bit different. It's kind of like in ancient Egypt when a different dynasty takes over. It's kind of like a new era, a new period of Egypt's history. That's a kind of good way to equate it, I would say. And yeah, this modern version of Nile, it takes more from modern death metal, but it still feels like classic Nile. Like, I would say The Underworld Awaits Us All stands alongside Annihilation of the Wicked. I would put it alongside Those Whom the Gods Detest. I would put it alongside Ithyphallic. I think this is an incredible piece of work. Vile Neurotic Rites, I really loved that album. But that one was kind of like the introduction to this new era of Nile, and I think this album is the realization of what Nile are going to do now, and it's the realization of that new era. So yeah, and I think it's incredible. Once again, we have Nile founder Carl Sanders, my favorite guitarist, and yeah, also obviously one of my favorite songwriters because he writes the majority of Nile's work. So there's another thing. Dallas left, yes, Dallas wrote some of Nile's best work, but the majority of Nile has always been mostly written by Carl. So we still get Nile. It's still Nile. They do have a different sound, though, I will say. They don't sound as chunky as they used to with their guitar tone on these last two albums, but I mean, that's a guitar tone. Go listen to them live. They sound just as good as they ever have. Anyway, the actual riffs and songwriting is just as good as classic Nile, and I would say this album is going to be looked at as a classic of death metal in the future. At least I hope it does. It deserves to be looked at that way. It's their 10th album, and they haven't slowed down. If anything, they've sped up. They have sped up. Like, the drumming, I don't know how you can get faster, but George Coleus finds a way to do it all the time. Yeah, that reminds me, I was going through the band members. But yeah, George Coleus, longtime drummer since Annihilation of the Wicked. He's still here, and he's still the epitome of speed and taste in extreme metal drumming. Nobody does it like George does. Few people can match his speed. He's just incredible. We're also joined by Brian Kingsland from Vile Neurotic Rites. He did a lot of the vocals on that album, and he does a lot of the vocals on this album, and he's a great songwriter. So I really like the stuff that he wrote, Strike with Secret Fang, for instance. And his vocal performance on this album is incredible. Like, his high screams on Chapter for Not Being Hung Upside Down on a Stake in the Underworld and Made to Eat Feces by the Four Apes. Awesome title, by the way. Incredible. His vocal work on this thing is awesome. And also on vocals and guitar, Brian does guitar and vocals. Also on guitar and vocals, we have Zach Jeter, I hope I said that right, from Urkatastrophe, who, if you watched my video for 2023, that was one of my absolute favorite albums of 2023. But yeah, Zach is awesome. Urkatastrophe is awesome. I'm pretty sure I described that album as the best Nile album that Nile didn't make. And now he's in Nile, so that's incredible. He's also, though, bassist for Hideous Divinity when they play live a lot of times, too. So that's another connection there. And he's also featured on the new Hideous Divinity album on Atto Corto, The Horror Paradox, which is maybe my favorite song on that entire album too. Anyway, yeah, he's here on this Nile album, and he's awesome. Does some vocals and some guitars, and he's awesome. And we got Dan Badham Vaughn, I probably said that wrong, from Morbid Angel. He's a guitarist in that. He plays bass on this album. And that's another thing about this album. To get into the new era of Nile, you can hear the bass on this album through the whole album, and it's great. There are times when it's like, that's the thing that you're focusing on, is the bass. When does that ever happen in Nile, other than like the chorus to Sacrifice unto Sebek, all the way from Annihilation of the Wicked? That's like the only time I can think of where, like, oh, you can hear the bass in that part. You hear the bass across this whole album. It's so awesome. Some of the riffs on this album are just, I think they're some of the best Nile riffs. Opening track, Stella Vultures. Stella? I always say that wrong, and I have to look it up all the time. But what an opening track. Good lord. And to have an opening track with that long guitar solo section, again, like the Vitriol album, but like the kind of sweet-picked riff in that song in Stella Vultures. I love that so much. One of my favorite Nile riffs. I also love it in the solo because it's repeated in the solo, and lead guitar kind of harmonizes off of that. It's really awesome. That's one thing about this album, though. The liner notes, I wish they said who did each guitar solo. That's like my one complaint, because I would like to know who did each one. But that's just a knowledge thing, not an issue with the actual album itself. Because the solos themselves are incredible. That's why I want to know who did which ones. Other than, it's pretty obvious which ones are Carl. Because all three of these guys are awesome lead guitarists. But Carl is my favorite lead guitarist, and he does some of his best solos on this album. So good. And yeah, riffs all across this thing. You know, Chapter, again, awesome riffs in that one. To Strike with Secret Fang. Nakata 2, Enter the Golden Age, has kind of this thrash feel to it that I really like in some of the riffs. And that one's become one of my favorite songs on the album too. Good solos there too. Under the Curse of the One God. In terms of the speed, again, going back to that, the palm muted tremolo riffing makes my wrist want to fall apart just listening to it. How do you even play that fast? That is incredible. Which if you do buy the physical copies, which I recommend with Nile, always do that, because there's liner notes, talk about the topic of each song and give some insight into the musical writing every once in a while. But Carl Sanders learned a new technique for downpicking that he used for those really, really fast sections from one of his students who he names in the liner notes. So yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, Under the Curse of the One God just blows me away when I hear that. Like, To Strike with Secret Fang also has some of that really fast stuff too. Doctrine of Last Things is either my favorite or second favorite song on the album, I think. Stellar Vultures and Nakata 2 are also awesome. But Doctrine of Last Things, I love the riffs on that album, on that song. They kind of remind me a little bit of Ithyphallic in the way that they're written, and What Should Not Be Unearthed. I love the bendy riffs, like the one that opens the song. So good. There's so many good riffs in that song. Like, every riff in that song is awesome. Also, the vocal layering and structuring with the different vocalists having their parts and the way they come in and play off of each other is awesome. So excellent on that song. Another thing too, we get these cool female choir vocals on this album that pop up here and there, and it's so cool every time. True Gods of the Desert also has clean vocals for just a little section, delivering us the hardest line on the entire album, Emboldened by Dusk, shunning the light of Ra. That is so hard. That is so awesome. I love that so much. But yeah, that song's really good. It kind of reminds me of like Nile doing Metallica in some parts, but it also has these slower riffs and sections that remind me of the slower parts in Annihilation of the Wicked. So again, calling back to this classic Nile feel that this album has, as well as the modern Nile feel. The title track, The Underworld Awaits Us All, has some of my favorite riffs. That's another contender, possibly my favorite song on the album. Some of my favorite riffs on the whole album, some that really remind me of Ithyphallic on that song. Some that I wish were repeated more, but like 48 seconds into that song, I think, roundabouts, maybe my favorite riff on the entire album. And then yeah, we close out this album with an instrumental, Lament for the Destruction of Time. That one was written by Brian Kingsland, and a good way to close out the album as we hear George Collias' incredible double bass going insane mode. We get this lead guitar that reminds me of the end of Ithyphallic, those squalling lead guitars. It sounds so cool. Yeah, a really awesome album. The Underworld Awaits Us All by Nile. I am so stoked that this album is as good as it is. Yeah, my favorite album of the year. I'm gonna leave it at that. I could talk about this for a lot longer, but I'm just gonna end it there. Yeah, those there you go, my favorite albums of 2024. I have no idea how long I've been recording this for. Hopefully I don't have to record it again, because as you might be able to tell, I'm losing my voice right now. What were your favorite albums of the year? What do you think of my list? What did you like from my list? Did you check anything out after seeing my list? What things should I have checked out that I didn't put in here? And I'm going to show a graphic here with all the albums that I listened to, minus some, like Todd Snyder, one of my absolute favorite folk artists. He did some new versions, just him with an acoustic guitar going through his discography, so I'm not going to have that in this list, but just all the new studio stuff that I listened to in the year. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. like, subscribe, all that if you are into that kind of thing. And I'll see you hopefully sooner rather than later. I have a new setup here, as you can see, which I'm mostly going to use. Probably I'm going to do some video game playthroughs. Probably start out with like Dark Souls, because that's my favorite game. So go through Dark Souls Remastered, and then I have some games I haven't even played yet that I'll probably play for the first time. So you'll see that on this channel eventually too. Yeah, that's gonna do it. Thanks for watching.